October 26, 1911, Volume 10. How Jesus needs to pour his love out, and he can make his outpourings of love only with one who loves him and is all love for him. He continues to make himself seen, but wanting to hide within me so as not to see the evils of creatures. I seemed to find myself outside of myself, and I saw venerable men, all dismayed, speaking about the war, and with great fear. Then the Queen Mamma made herself seen, and I, "My beautiful Mamma, what will happen with the war?" And she, "My daughter, pray. Oh, how many troubles. Pray, pray, my daughter." I was dismayed, and I prayed to good Jesus. But it seems that Jesus does not want to pay attention to me. Even more, it seems that he does not even want me to talk about this. It seems he only wants refreshment, and only the refreshment of love. Instead of pouring bitternesses, he pours sweetnesses. And if I say, "You are full of bitternesses, and you pour sweetnesses into me," Jesus says, "My daughter, I can pour out bitternesses with everyone, but the outpourings of love, the sweetnesses, I can pour only into one who loves me and who is all love for me. Don't you know that love, too, is a necessity for me, and that I need it more than anything?" October 26, 1926, Volume 20. How in all the acts that Jesus did, his purpose was the kingdom of the divine Fiat. Adam feels the honor he had lost being returned to him. As I continued to unite myself with the acts that Jesus did in redemption, my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, see how all the acts I did in redeeming man, and even the miracles I performed during my public life, had no other purpose but to call back the kingdom of the supreme Fiat into the midst of creatures. And in the act of doing them, I asked my celestial Father to make it known and to restore it in the midst of the human generations. If I gave sight to the blind, my first act was to put to flight the darkness of the human will, the primary cause of the blindness of the soul and of the body, so that the light of my will might illuminate the souls of many blind, and they might obtain the sight to look at my will in order to love it, and their bodies also might be exempt from losing this sight. If I gave hearing to the deaf, first I asked my Father that they might acquire the hearing to hear the voices, the knowledges, the prodigies of my divine will, so that it might enter into their hearts as the way in order to dominate them, and there might be no more deaf in the world, either in the soul or in the body. Also in the dead I resurrected. I asked that souls might rise again in my eternal will, even those that were putrefied and made more than cadavers by the human will. And when I took the ropes to drive the profaners out of the temple, it was the human will that I was driving out, so that mine might enter, reigning and dominating, and they might be truly rich in their souls and no longer subject to natural poverty. And even when triumphant I entered into Jerusalem in the midst of the triumph of the crowds, surrounded with honor and glory, it was the triumph of my will that I established in the midst of the peoples. There was no act I did while being on earth in which I did not place my will as prime act to be established once again in the midst of creatures, because that was the thing I most cared for. If it were not so, or if I did not do so, if in everything I worked and suffered I did not have the kingdom of the supreme Fiat as prime act to be restored in the midst of creatures, my coming upon earth would have brought a half good to the generations, not a complete one, and the glory of my celestial Father would not have been completely reintegrated by me. In fact, since my will is the origin of every good and the only purpose of creation and redemption, it is therefore the ultimate fulfillment of all of our works. Without it, our most beautiful works remain within a frame and without completion, because it alone is the crown of our works, and the seal that our work is complete. Therefore, for the honor and glory of the very work of redemption, it was to have as prime act the purpose of the kingdom of my will. After this I was beginning my round in the divine will, and going into the terrestrial Eden, in which Adam had done the first act of withdrawal of his will from the divine, I said to my sweet Jesus, "My love, I want to annihilate my will in yours, that it may never have life, so that your will may have life in everything and forever, in order to repair for the first act that Adam did, and return to your supreme volition all the glory, as if Adam had never withdrawn from it. Oh, how I wish to give back to him the honor he lost, because he did his own will and rejected yours. And I intend to do this act for as many times as all creatures have done their own will, the cause of all evils, and have rejected yours, the origin and font of all goods. Therefore I pray you that the kingdom of the supreme Fiat may come soon, so that everyone, from Adam up to all the creatures who have done their own will, may receive the honor and the glory that they lost, and your will may receive triumph, glory, and its fulfillment." Now, while I was saying this, my highest good, Jesus, was moved and touched, and making my first father Adam present to me, let him himself tell me, with emphasis of love all special, "Blessed daughter, finally my Lord God, after so many centuries, has delivered to the light of the day she who was to think about giving me back the honor and the glory that I lost, alas, by doing my will. How I feel my happiness redoubled. Until now no one has ever thought of giving me back that honor that I lost. Therefore I thank God profoundly for having delivered you to the light, and I thank you, the daughter dearest to me, for taking on the commitment of giving back to God the glory as if his will had never been offended by me, and to me the great honor that the kingdom of the supreme Fiat be established once again in the midst of the human generations. It is right that I give you the place that had been destined to me as the first creature that came out of the hands of our Creator." After this, my lovable Jesus, clasping me to himself, told me, "My daughter, not only Adam, but the whole of heaven awaits your acts in my will, in order to receive the honor that their human will has taken away from them. You must know that I have placed more grace in you than I placed in Adam, so that my will might possess you and dominate you with triumph, and yours might feel honored never to have life, and to give the place to my will. In him I did not place my humanity as his help and strength, and as cortege of my will, because I did not have it then. But I have placed it in you, to provide you with all the necessary helps so that your will might remain at its place, and mine might reign, and together with you might follow your rounds in my eternal volition in order to establish its kingdom." On hearing this, surprised, I said, "My Jesus, what are you saying? It seems to me that you want to tempt me and make fun of me. How is it possible that you have placed more grace in me than in Adam? And Jesus: Certainly, certainly, my daughter, I had to make it so that your will might be sustained by another divine humanity, so that it would not stagger, but remain firm in my will. Therefore I am not making fun of you, but I am telling you this so that you correspond to me and be attentive. October 26, 1931, Volume 29. The good acts done in the divine will change into light. Admirable effects of the abandonment in the arms of Jesus. One who lets herself be dominated by the divine will becomes people of his kingdom. I am always in the arms of the divine will that forms its day of light in my little soul. And even though some cloud shows up in this day, the power of its light fixes on it, and the cloud, seeing itself fixed upon, flees. It dissolves, and it seems to say, "It shows that there is no place for me in this day that the divine will forms in the creature." And the divine will seems to answer to it, "Wherever I am present, there is no place for anyone, because I want to make of the creature a single act of my will that does not admit anything at all that does not belong to me." O divine will, how admirable, powerful, and lovable you are, and highly jealous wherever you reign. Oh, please always put to flight for me my miseries, the weaknesses, the clouds of my will, so that my day may be always perennial, and the heaven of my little soul may always be serene. But while I was thinking of this, my lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, good is light, and if this good is done in my divine will, as many rays are formed for as many good acts as are done. And my Fiat fixes these rays of light in the circumference of its eternal light. So these acts take their place within our acts and do double office of praise, of adorations, of perennial love toward our adorable Majesty, and of defense, of mercy, of help, of light toward the mankind according to the circumstances in which it finds itself. On the other hand, if the good acts are not done in my will and with its power, though they are light, they do not have the strength to extend in order to fix themselves in the circumference of our light, and they remain without supports and like broken rays, and therefore they do not have perennial life. And since the font of the light is missing, there is the danger that, little by little, they may be extinguished." After this, continuing my abandonment in the divine volition, I was feeling all afflicted because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. His privation is like a hammer that always pounds to exacerbate the pain more. And only then does it cease to pound, when the divine host comes out of his hiding place to make his little visit to his beloved creature. His sweet presence, his lovable manners, makes joy rise again from the very pain, and the hammer ceases its cruel crafting. But as soon as the celestial visitor withdraws, it begins to pound again, and my poor soul feels itself all eyes, all ears. Who knows, it might see him and hear him again, and it anxiously waits and waits for he, who, having wounded me, alone has the power to heal the wound he has given me, alas, too painful. But while I was pouring out my sorrow, my sweet Jesus came back, and embracing my poor soul, told me, "Daughter, I am here. Abandon yourself in my arms and rest in me." Your abandonment in me calls for my abandonment in you, and forms my sweet rest in your soul. Abandonment in me forms the sweet and powerful chain that binds me so much to the soul that I cannot unbind myself from her, to the point of rendering me her dear and sweet prisoner. Abandonment in me gives birth to true trust, and she has trust in me, and I have trust in her. I have trust in her love that will never fail. I have trust in her sacrifices, for she will never refuse me anything of what I want, and I have all the trust that I can accomplish my designs. Abandonment in me says that she gives me freedom, and I am free to do what I want. And I, entrusting myself to her, manifest to her my most intimate secrets. Therefore, my daughter, I want you all abandoned in my arms, and the more abandoned you are in me, the more you will feel my abandonment in you. And I, my love, how can I abandon myself in you if you escape from me? And Jesus added, then is the abandonment perfect when, seeing me escape, you abandon yourself more. This gives me no field to be able to escape. On the contrary, it binds me more. Then he added, my daughter, life, sanctity, consists in two acts, God giving his will and the creature receiving it. And after she has formed within herself the life of that act of divine will that she has received, giving it back again as act of her will, to then receive it again. Giving and receiving, receiving and giving, everything is in this. God could not give more than his continued act of his will to the creature. The creature could not give more to God, for as much as it is possible for a creature, then his divine will, received into herself as formation of divine life. In this way, giving and receiving, receiving and giving, my divine fiat takes dominion and forms its kingdom in her, and the whole interior of the creature forms, as though the people of the kingdom of the divine will, the intelligence. Faithful people that glories in being directed by the sovereign commander of the divine fiat, and the crowd of the thoughts that press themselves around and aspire to know always more, and to love the great king who sits, as though on a throne, in the center of the intelligence of the creature. The desires, the affections, the heartbeats that are unleashed from the heart increase the number for the people of my kingdom. And oh, how they throng around its throne! They all stand at attention to receive the divine orders, and even lay down their life in order to execute them. What an obedient, orderly people is the people of the kingdom of my fiat! There are no contentions, no disagreements, but this whole crowd of people of the interior of this fortunate creature wants one thing alone, and like a fierce army, it posts itself in the fortress of the kingdom of my divine will. Then, when the interior of the creature becomes all my people, it bursts out of the interior and increases the people of the words, the people of the works, of the steps. It can be said that each act formed by this celestial people contains the password, written in characters of gold, will of God. And when this crowd of people moves to exercise each its own office, they put at the front the flag with the motto, Fiat, followed by the words written with vivid light, we belong to the great King of the supreme Fiat. See then, each creature who lets herself be dominated by my will forms a people for the kingdom of God. October 26, 1938, Volume 36. The Effects of Disturbance. The Little Ill One in the Divine Will. One who lives in the divine will forms the support for her Creator, so the Holy Trinity secures its interests. My poor being feels the extreme need to live in the divine will. The bitterness and the pains that invade me are such that I feel as if they wanted to tear out the divine fiat from inside of me. I feel more than ever the desire to live in it. But with all the efforts I make to live abandoned in its arms, I still can't do without feeling embittered, stunned, disturbed by the many troubles and hard pains that surround me, so much that I can't take it any more. My Jesus, Celestial Mother, help me. Can't you see that I am about to succumb? If you don't hold me in your arms, if you don't continue to inundate me with the waves of your divine volition, I tremble and fear. What will happen to me? Please don't leave me. Don't abandon me to myself in such a hard state. But as I was thinking this, my always adorable Jesus ran to sustain me in his arms, and all goodness told me, "My daughter, my good daughter, do not fear. Courage. I won't leave you. I cannot leave you. The chains of my love tie me to you and make us inseparable. But then why do you fear to be leaving my will? Just as to enter it, it took a firm, resolute act of wanting to live in it. In the same way, to get out of it, it would take another firm and resolute act. And you didn't do this. Neither will my daughter ever do it, will you? All I want is that you do not let yourself be surprised by any disturbance. It pales you. It makes you lose freshness. It debilitates your strength. It makes you lose the liveliness of the light of the fiat. So my love remains repressed. Attention loses its pace. And although you are in my will, you stay there as if inside a house in which you don't bother doing your duties, to decorate it, put it in order, and give it all the sumptuousness that befits it. So, being troubled like this in my will, you don't pay attention to receiving my creative and operating act. You are as if idle. But courage, then, since your pains are because of me. We keep you in our will as the little ill one. I am the first who suffers with you, since your pains are mine and I suffer more than you. I am like your nurse. I assist you. I make your bed out of my arms, and I place my pains around you to strengthen you. Our mother and queen runs to put you on her lap, to protect her little ill daughter. Since one who operated in my will brought glory and joy to all heaven, all the angels and saints run around our little infirm one to assist her and serve her needs in our will. But they cannot enter into strange things that do not belong to us. Even the pains must be our pains, otherwise they can't find the way to enter them. Therefore, courage. All that I want is that you be at peace. How many times I, too, under the press of hard pains, became infirm, and the angels ran to sustain me. Even my heavenly Father, in seeing me in excruciating pains, ran to me and took me in his arms to strengthen my groaning humanity. And how many times my mother fell ill in my will, in seeing the sufferings of her son, to the point of feeling as though dying, and I ran to sustain her, holding her to my heart, not letting her succumb. All I want is courage and peace. Do not trouble yourself too much, and I'll take care of everything." Then he added, "My daughter, you don't know yet all the good the creature receives by living in my will, and the great glory she gives to her Creator. Every act she does in it is a leaning of God on the creature, leaning his power of love and of sanctity. The more acts she repeats, the more we trust her, and the more we can lean on what is ours, since our will is there, giving capacity and strength to the creature to receive what we want to give. But if we don't find our will and her acts repeated in it, we don't know where to lean. She doesn't have strength, capacity, or the space in which to receive our gifts and graces, so that I can trust her. Poor creature without our will. She, the true citadel, without doors and without sentries to defend it, exposed to all the dangers. If we want to give, it would be like exposing our gifts and our very life to uselessness and to the danger of receiving offenses and ingratitude, so that they make us turn gifts and graces into chastisements. Therefore you must know that when the creature does our will, we settle our interests. We never operate to our disadvantage. First, we secure the interests, our glory, and then we operate. Otherwise it would be as if we didn't have heart for our sanctity, or as if we did not appreciate our gifts, or what we do, or as if we didn't know ourselves, our power and our ability. Who would ever start an enterprise without first securing his interests? Nobody. It may happen that, by disgrace, his enterprise suffers some losses, but by having thought of securing his interests first, he won't have to leave his situation. He can maintain his status, but if he hadn't put his interests in a safe place, he could reduce himself to starvation. This is why we want the creature in our will, because we want to secure our concerns, what we give of love, sanctity, goodness, and all the rest. Our divine will takes charge of having them returned to us in as many divine acts. We gave divine love, and she gives us divine love back. Our will transforms the creature into our sanctity and goodness, and makes her give us back holy and good acts. Therefore even her breath, her motion, and her steps are pure and holy. We feel in her acts their similarity with ours, because they are rendered so by our will. So when we receive from the creature what is ours, made divine by our fiat, our interest is settled, our love celebrates, our glory triumphs, and we prepare new surprises of love, gifts, graces. When our interest is returned, we don't mind about anything. We abound so much that the heavens overflow. End of October 26th. Fiat.